Hey, guess what? New York City is pushing indoor mask advisory for all as the worst Omicron strain fuels a sixth wave. Now, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube, but I'm going to say it. We have covered this. They've done studies about mask wearing. Now, it's not that certain masks like N95, those masks, those work. If you use them, they will keep out 95% of whatever the stuff is you want to keep out. If you use an N95, the most uncomfortable masks in the world, if you use one, they work for you. In fact, they work better for you than if two people just had regular surgical masks on, which is what most people are going to wear. So when you have a mask mandate, most people are going to put on masks that don't really work that well. They work, but people don't wear them correctly. They don't work as good as N95s. And if you have everybody wearing surgical masks, two people wearing surgical masks don't protect you as much as just you wearing one N95 mask.
Fauci was right the first time, is what you're saying?
Ha!
You're going to be fiddling with it in the schmutz.
But get the schmutz on it and the unintended consequences. So now they're bringing it back. You didn't write any jokes for this, right?
No.
Okay, so they're bringing it back. All 5 boroughs of New York City are back in the CDC's high-risk category for COVID community spread. So you know what Dr. Robert Malone said on this show a year ago? Is that the COVID virus would mutate to become more contagious and less deadly, and that's exactly what's happened. Now, the problem with Omicron is, well, that you can get it again and again. Right? I've gotten it. Well, I had it. I took the Paxlovid, or I don't know how you say it, Paxlovid. And they don't tell you when you take it that you're probably going to get COVID right away after you take that.
Why is
There's
that?
a high chance of you getting that. They don't know because it hasn't been studied. That Paxlovid wasn't invented for COVID. It's a drug for something else that they're repurposing, just like they tried to repurpose ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. How you repurpose a medicine, they're trying to repurpose Paxlovid for COVID, and there's no long-term studies on it. So we're just finding out that, well, they knew it before they prescribed it to me, that there's a rebound, that people often get sick right away again with COVID right after you take Paxlovid.
So it's
and
a
if
drug that gives you double COVID?
Gives you double COVID. And so they didn't tell me that. So I took it and I got COVID. But now Steph didn't take it and she didn't get it again. So there you go. So, and by the way, it presents now as a cold. It presents. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it is presenting that way. Okay? So all 5 boroughs. So they're going to do this for a virus that has mutated to become way less deadly and more contagious. So that's why you're going to have to wear a mask. Not because you might get that super bad Delta variant, but because you might get the Omicron one. We'll see which now presents as a cold. Some people keep trying to make you scared to death of Omicron, and you can be. You can be. You can also be scared of any virus. Look how many people die from the flu every year. You can make that case, and look at that. So all 5 boroughs of New York City are back in the CDC's high-risk category for COVID community spread. Not high risk for death or hospitalization. That's not what that says. It says high risk for catching it, for the spread. And they call it the worst version of Omicron. Now, what makes it worst? You mean that it's going to make you sicker? Is that what they mean? Because that's what they want you to think.
It's not what it means?
Is that not what it means? Well, I don't know. Let's find out.
Will I be surprised?
Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Staten Island had all been in the CDC high-risk category for the latter half of May and transitioned to medium risk through June as viral rates and hospital admissions associated with that have ebbed. Did you see what I just read, Kurt? I'll read it again. Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Staten Island had all been in the CDC high-risk category for the latter half of May and transitioned to medium risk through June as viral rates and hospital admissions associated with the wave ebbed. But now, the relief was short-lived. Though, with all 5 boroughs now at a heightened state of risk. Risk of what? Risk of what? That means face masks are recommended for everyone indoors and in public settings, regardless of vaccination status again. It comes as some neighborhoods in Manhattan and Queens are seeing a 25% positivity rate. Of what? Not of Delta, not of Alpha, not of that, but of Omicron. City health officials renewed their indoor mask advisory on Friday in light of the updated COVID data. Now, I had Omicron 3 times. I've had it 3 times. And what does it feel like? Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't stop doing whatever I was normally going to do. It didn't knock me out. It didn't put me in bed. I didn't stop eating. I didn't stop working. That's how it presented in me. Now, if you want to go back to doing this because of something like that, I would say you're nuts. But I would have to then say by YouTube rules that I'm wrong because I can't go against the health officials, so they're all right. This all makes sense, and that my opinion is wrong. So there you go. I'm giving you context. City health officials renewed their indoor mask advisory on Friday in light of the updated COVID data. Now, again, there's been studies about the efficacy of masks. And Fauci, when he said that stuff, that there's a lot of unintended consequences with masks, when he said that, he was right. Now, later he said he was lying.
His words.
His words. He said he was lying. But I don't think he was lying about that. As of Friday, more than a fifth of all U.S. counties are designated high risk for community spread by the CDC, an increase of 70% in just the last 2 weeks. A spread of what? They make it seem like if something spreads, that's automatically horrible. No, the reason why we were worried about COVID is because we were convinced it was going to kill us if we got it. So that's why it was scary. It isn't scary, and I'm not saying COVID is a cold. I'm saying this. If a regular cold becomes super contagious, would you also make people wear a mask for that? Because it's super contagious, would you start calling, so you're at risk of getting this cold? I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about a regular cold. If it became super contagious, would you be talking about it like this? Think of that. That's just something I'm putting out there. I don't know. Maybe you would talk about it like this. In New York, Westchester County joined the 5 boroughs in their return to high risk, while Suffolk County has downgraded, blah, blah, blah. What's behind the latest wave? What is behind the latest wave? It doesn't appear to be much of a mystery. COVID variant BA.5, an Omicron descendant that evidence indicates to be more transmissible than earlier strains, also appears to be at least 4 times more vaccine resistant.
That's weird.
What does that even effing mean? What is that? It's scary. It sounds super scary. But I don't even know what that means. Do you know what that means, Kurt?
It means the vaccine doesn't work on it. I don't know if I can say that.
I don't even know if you can say that. But they're saying
it's 4 times more of that is what.
Yeah. Kurt's freezing. BA5, which accounted for more than 40% of all New York State positive COVID samples sequenced for variants in the last 2-week data set, and 45% of all New York City samples tested, and BA4 were at least 4.2 times more vaccine evasive than their predecessor. Boy, that is some really shitty writing, whoever wrote this. I hate when people write like that. They can't write a fucking thought. They have to break it up with parentheses and commas and bullshit. That is such a fucking horrible writing. BA5, comma, which accounted for more than 40% of all New York State positive COVID sample sequence for the variants of the last 2 weeks. What the fuck? You got a comma, and then you put a parentheses inside that comma. And then another comma.
4.2 times more vaccine evasive.
And I don't even know what it means. And I still don't. Yeah, 4.2.
The football player that was like, I have natural immunity, Jason.
I don't know.
They're like that football player. Yeah. 4 times. We're like, maybe I got it. Maybe I had natural immunity.
Reinfection rates across the Empire State have supported the research findings as of late. Overall, that risk is up across the board in New York City. They keep talking about how it's contagious. They don't talk about the severity of the illness. I'm skipping all that. Health department officials are currently reevaluating their COVID alert system as they try to adapt to the changing pandemic climate. You know, this flu season before COVID was a tough flu season. The 2018-2019 COVID, flu, I mean, not COVID, but regular flu season was so intense that they had tents. They had tents set up in parking lots of hospitals from coast to coast. And they were treating people from the flu. Now, why didn't anybody ask for a mask mandate back then? Why don't we have to wear masks now when people die from the flu every day? Thousands and thousands of people a year die from the flu. Why don't we wear masks all the time? Why are we wearing masks for Omicron? Why? They say because it's contagious. Well, so a lot of things are contagious. We don't wear masks for them. Why are we wearing masks? That's the question I would like to have answered by Dr. Fauci or one of these morons who works for one of these agencies. What do you want to say, Kurt?
Don't you think there's probably, I mean, especially in New York, if you think of Joy Behar was like, I'd like to just wear a mask all the time because the air's dirty and you want, like, there's probably a bunch of people that are way into always wearing a mask.
There are.
And would like to, anything.
Joy Behar said on her show that she was going to wear it all the time for the rest of her life. And I said, you know, in 5 minutes, there's going to be a picture of her without her mask on. And there was. She was at a restaurant eating and she had her mask off.
Well, that's the one safe place.
You know what's hilarious is I just went to a restaurant this morning. I was in a hotel and I had to eat breakfast. So I went to the restaurant and they got that plexiglass shit around the hostess station like it's bulletproof glass and someone's going to shoot at them. They're completely enclosed, but nobody's wearing a mask anywhere in the restaurant. So do you think the air can't get... none of it makes sense. None of it. And... so congratulations to New York City. You got masks back again for Omicron. What is the severity of Omicron? If you noticed, there wasn't one paragraph in there about the severity. It was just that it's the worst because it's even more contagious. That's exactly what Dr. Robert Malone said would happen. It would become way more contagious and less deadly. And that's exactly what has happened. Now, I have heard that the BA5 variant, the thing about Omicron was it didn't attack your lungs. That's why it wasn't as deadly. But now I hear, that the Omicron wasn't. I hear it is going according to Dr. John Campbell, the BA5 is somewhat going back into the lungs. And that's what made everybody susceptible. Well, that was a bad thing. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. Don't look to me for medical advice. I'm just giving you information that I come across. And you make up your own decisions. I know you're not supposed to do your own research. I know you're supposed to just blindly follow what the government tells you. But I'm kind of a fussy prick in that way. I like to get informed about medical treatments. Call me crazy. Call me a Trumper. Call me a white supremacist Nazi. But I like to get informed about medical procedures, especially one that have no long-term data, that have no long-term studies. I like to get informed about that. Now, you might ridicule me. You also might ridicule me for reading, because that's what that is. That's what that is. I know.
I just close my eyes and open my mouth. That's my motto. I just got
and go look at the other YouTubers who are in this space, as they say, that I am in, that my show is in. Go look at their YouTube playlist. Do they have one video critical of the government's narrative on COVID or vaccines? Do they have one video? The answer is no. All they do is repeat what's that?
Why would they risk that?
That's right. They repeat government and big pharma propaganda uncritically. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about all the YouTube channels. Go look at the Young Turks. That they just repeat propaganda all day long. They're worse than MSNBC now. They actually got worse. Not one goddamn video critical of the COVID narrative. How about Mild Kalinsky? Go look at his channel. See if he has any balls whatsoever, and you know he doesn't. And you know he doesn't have one fucking video critical of the COVID narrative or the vaccine rollout, because he's a fucking weasel pussy. Hey, we're going to Sacramento, back here in Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Go to JimmyDoreComedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our shows.